Just gotta click all the buttons here. There's a lot of buttons to click. Hop back over. Cool. I think we're live. There's usually a little dashboard, but it says we're streaming. All right, getting better and better. Welcome everyone to Uncomplication Live. This is a live experiment in bravery and commitment. It has been a growth experience, to say the least, to decide to show up here and invite you all into my art and my art making. It feels brave for a couple of reasons. One is that art is, or can be, it can have a lot of attachments to our sense of self. And I know this from my art students. I'm a high school art teacher, and there's a tendency to get really caught up for these students in the images that they make. And there's a tendency to try and be a perfectionist and to do everything right. And that can squash the entire creative process right from the get-go. So part of this for me is just showing up, making my art, being the artist that I am today, not necessarily the one that I wish I was, and letting go of the perfection. And then the second part is also coming out on the YouTube audience, which is a very different audience, and seeing the response in real time as I show up as my actual authentic self, sharing the things that I am genuinely interested in. It has been an interesting process of just saying this is who I am, this is what I'm interested in, and the value that I have to bring. And I believe that there's a lot of value here, not just in my work, but also in my philosophy that has allowed me to reshape my life time and time again, but always in the direction of highest excitement. And so I know that there are people, I read the comments, there's lots of good comments, but there's the haters, and it is an exercise in letting that go too. So if this is not your cup of tea, you are more than welcome to unsubscribe or walk out the door or leave. That's completely fine. I think I've transitioned past the point of trying to keep everybody happy. Again, it's a metaphor for life. What a horrible life it is to try and make everyone else happy, and to contort ourselves and distort ourselves and say the things that we think people want to hear versus just showing up and being ourselves. So I do have an exciting part to start this little live stream, something I haven't done before. I'm tying this in with an art survey that I have had running for the last couple days, and I've already got almost 50 responses on that survey. But the survey itself was to first help me hone in on what collection of art I'm going to offer next. So there were some options there. And second, there's going to be a prize drawing where one of the respondents is going to win a free framed and signed print of the piece that they chose. So this is a couple of the pieces that were included in the survey. There will be a second chance, so there will be another winner or winners. The link is in the description of the YouTube video, and then on my Instagram, it's in my bio, so you can still take the survey. But I've never done this before. Let's try this out. Let's spin this wheel and see what happens. So this is to see who wins the first signed print, framed. And around and around and around it goes. Oh, Michelle Alexander. Oh my gosh, that is a lovely human that I used to work with back at Community Funded. I haven't talked to Michelle in, gosh, I don't know, several years. So that will be interesting when I reach out to her and let her know that she won. I don't know exactly which print, what type of art she liked. I'll look at those results later. But yeah, that is super cool. I guess while I'm just up on my computer here, I'll share. I've had a lot of really cool stuff happening. There's a studio tour this weekend. So I'm going to have a lot of people from Fort Collins coming through the studio. This is the piece that I currently have hanging at the Center for Creativity. And it is one of my biggest, most beautiful pieces to date. And I'm just super proud of it. So figured I'd just share that while it's up and running. And then what we're going to do today is we're going to continue the drawing that we started on the live stream last week. And I think we'll even get to paint today. And as usual, it's going to be a mix of me yammering about the philosophies and ideas that are close to home and part of this whole self-transformational opportunity, and how I've been able to remove so many obstacles that were very present for me in the last couple years and shift into this place where I am every day waking up, doing the things that I want to do. My highest excitement is the compass needle. And yeah, that's also part of just bringing you guys into this space and into this excitement. This is my job, is to hang out and make art and to talk philosophy, and that has always been my dream. So yeah, without further ado, congratulations, Michelle Alexander. I will be reaching out to you, and then yeah, we're gonna get into it. So a couple cool things are happening. I'm gonna switch over to this camera, and this is the piece that we started last time, and it's really interesting because it's an older style for me, and it's a very heady style. And I kind of realized this after all the live streaming. There's this different type of energy that comes out, for me at least, when I am talking to a camera, when I am being analytical, when I am thinking through different concepts and then making art. This style of art, I call it HECISM. It's something that I've developed pretty much since college, and it looks to me like ADD. Like, this is how my brain feels a lot of the time. And so there's a lot of fractured lines, there's a lot of concepts that seem to shift, and there's repeating patterns. But it's a very different type of art than what I have been making recently. The art that I've been making most recently is really flowing. It's really an exercise in releasing resistance. I'll show you one example here that I'm excited about. Some work from the other night. And you can see just how different these approaches are. So this was something that I painted the other night, and I painted 6 paintings in one night, and this was one of my favorites, even though it's one of the smaller ones. I have one that is 4 times the size. But the thing that I've really been into lately is this welcoming practice, where as much as this black and white, very heady, very structured, very this or that, everything that's coming out of this is coming out of my brain. This activity is a physical working with the materials and trusting them that they know more than I do, and seeing what they do. And the most amazing things start to happen when I'm in tune with the materials themselves. And I'll just kind of zoom in on some of these areas. So I can't get enough of how cool this little journey is, from this paint drip into this purple that drips down into the orange, and then the orange and the yellow are combining, and then the orange goes into the purple and kind of pushes out the purple. And yeah, so this is kind of where my style is moving. And really what I'm excited about is the combination of the two. And so that little video clip that I played up front that has, I guess I've got it up here. I'll just share that again because it's really exciting to me. So on the computer here, you can see in the background there's the letting go, the expression, the paint being paint. And then on top of that is the more kind of intellectual, black and white. This particular painting, everything is done with a brush, but we can get the same effect from the pens that we're using. So anyway, I just want to share that because I'm super excited about it. Like I said, the gallery tour is happening this weekend, and I'm super excited to see people in the studio, kind of witnessing some of the things that I've been making. And the piece that's in the Center for Creativity, it's got a price tag on it of $20,000, which was intentionally very high. I feel like whatever my biggest, most representative of my work piece is, that should always carry a big aspirational price tag, because it's setting the compass, it's setting that that ceiling for where I'm going, not just where I am. And so, yeah. And where we're going is this painting, or this drawing rather. Today we're going to develop it just a little bit more, and then we're going to paint it. And it is going to end up looking something like this. This is another one where I started with the drawing first, black lines, very heady, and then got to go in and just be more loose and expressive with the paint. And I won't keep beating this drum over and over and over, but it's fun for me to just emphasize that what I am doing here is this sort of physical activity of demonstrating this belief that I hold, or this thing that I've experienced, where letting go and welcoming what is, and being myself and being imperfect, and letting that just stand has absolutely changed how I make art, how I show up in the world, the relationships that I have, my own excitement for what I'm doing and how I'm living. And it's allowed me to kind of go from this, I don't know, almost perpetual nightmare of what do I do next? How do I create something in this life that is valuable? And instead it's just this dance, this playfulness. And that's what I am going to continue to do on these live streams, is just show up, make my art. As I said in the beginning, if you're not interested in that, you are more than welcome to leave. On this channel, I have never once said hit the subscribe button, but I have said multiple times, feel free to unsubscribe if this is not what you want. Yeah, the whole idea of audience capture and people getting stuck just saying the catchphrase and repeating the one-liners and repeating the vision that everyone wants to see over and over is just, in my experience, and I think a lot of other creators, it's a one-way street to dissatisfaction, resentment. That's true on a YouTube channel, that's true in an art piece, that's true in a marriage, that's true in all kinds of relationships. So this is me being me, making cool stuff, and I'm thrilled for those of you that are excited to kind of follow along. So what I'm going to do now is just kind of get into the zone, get into the headspace. And I talked about this when we started this drawing. There's this interesting phenomenon where right now this drawing, it is what it is. And I actually rather like it. I think there's some really cool things going on here. And so right now I'm fighting this initial resistance where, you know, why poke something that I don't want to take a risk? Or, you know, there's this kind of heaviness that can happen, especially on a blank sheet of paper. Like that first line carries so much importance. But even now, like as I dig back in, like, am I going to be the same artist? Is it going to be in the same style? Is it still going to be good? Should I just stop? Should I just, do the safe play and move on? And when I look at this, I'm just going to follow my intention. And my intention today was to show up and make art. And so I'm just going to make the first stroke. And everything I feel is sort of this game of add-on with myself, where I get to welcome this as a gift from wherever it came from, whatever past self or experiences. It is now mine to play with. And so I'm just going to continue to see it that way. There's really no separation between this session of drawing and the one from over a week ago. It's all just this continuity. And yeah, so I'm going to kind of get lost in here a little bit. And again, I don't know how exciting this is to watch, but I know that there are a lot of people on YouTube and on the interwebs that just kind of show up and make their art. So I'm also going to let go of any notion that there's something that I have to be delivering other than just what I'm doing. Cool, and I did just glance up and catch a comment from Shankar M. And it's so funny, like, I've had a lot of comments like that, and they're so inspiring, and so they just make me know that what I'm on is the right trip, like not making everyone happy, just really focusing on my own excitement, and then the ones that tune in are the ones that really are on the same wavelength. And the reason why it's funny is because I get those comments, and then I'll get one where it's just like, oh, isn't this the dude that said blah 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 about crypto 6 months ago? And like those ones just like they sting. They like stay under my skin. They make me want to quit. And that again, I started off the stream saying that this is just an experiment. This is an exercise in being myself, and that includes accepting that maybe a lot of people aren't going to like me, and that the concept of you're only as good as your last game, like, sure, but you know what, whatever game I'm playing currently is always valid, it's always worthy, it's always worthwhile. And I know what it's like to get stuck playing roles for the perceived benefit of other people. And man, oh man, I have spent a lot of time just being frustrated at the people I love, at the people that I was supposedly caring for. And I think I got a lot of this from The Artist's Way, which is Julia Cameron's amazing, amazing book. Anyone who is creative at their core but finding themselves maybe stuck in a life or a job or, I don't know, patterns that aren't conducive to their creativity. Julia Cameron's book, The Artist's Way, is this unapologetic almost like a selfish exercise of really getting honest about what it is that you want, and then making time for it, and saying no, and prioritizing excitement. And I found that as I do that as well, it makes me a better father, it makes me a better partner, it makes me a better human, because my tank is full, and now I actually have something to share with the people that are looking to me for support or whatever it might be. Yeah, so this is actually feeling pretty full, and I know that once we get to the paint layers, kind of like this, there's a lot that can happen between the lines. And so one of the things I challenge myself to do is to just have trust in the negative space and not feel like every every section needs to be filled. And similarly with this live stream, like, silence is okay. I don't always have to be talking. Sometimes in the silence, really interesting things can happen. So I'm going to challenge myself a little bit to just let this be enough. I think down here, just to kind of balance the composition. No, you know what? I think I might even just let the paint kind of speak for itself down here. And then there will always be other opportunities to come back in and see what happened and layer in some additional lines. So I'm really feeling the urge to paint. So let's leave the drawing portion on the sidelines for now. Let's call this at least a workable drawing. And now we're going to get some color in here. And I'm very excited that I have this little palette of paints, which is actually one that I handmade from natural pigments with my artist friends Jen Snow and Xavier. They're really big into making pigments from natural substances. So all of these started out as powder, and some of them are just earth, some of them are actually bug shells, like this one here. It looks really brown, but when water touches this, it turns into the most bright, vivid red you've ever seen, and it's all crushed up bug shell. So these are the paints that we're going to use. I'm going to also use, just to kind of get some base coverage, I am going to use some larger brushes and some paints that are not necessarily on the palette over here. So yeah, this is another fun part, and this is also one of these moments that just carry a little bit of gravity. Like I was saying, when I sat down with this drawing and it was mostly complete, there's this pressure of not wanting to ruin it, or I can't tell you how many drawings and paintings I have in my past where I got to a certain point and then just was so terrified of making a mistake that I left it. And I have some drawings that I actually would go back and make a few marks like every couple years, and it says like R. Stover 2008, and then 2009, and then 2010, 11, 12, 13, 14, 15. And I don't do that anymore. I'm kind of excited. This new phase of mine is one of just boldly trying things, seeing what happens. If it's a total failure, if it's a total mess, that's all part of it. And everything is a sketch. Including the conversations I have, including even the relationships that I have. I've found that there's so many people in the world, and rather than get hung up on having everyone like me or have every conversation go perfect, I have sort of enjoyed this, like, I'm going to show up, I'm going to say whatever it is I say, and then it's going to be done, I'm going to move on. And yeah, that's kind of top of mind. I do this adult skate night on Wednesdays here in Fort Collins. And I know I've talked about it before, but it is just so funny. It's just like this big fish tank of people, like, all cruising around, and there's all kinds of pretty girls, and I like trying to flirt with them, and sometimes it goes really great, and sometimes it does not, and I just feel silly and awkward or creepy or whatever. But it kind of becomes this practice of like showing up, this is me, try our best, and round and around we go. All right, so I am going to do, all of this is experimental. I feel like I'm going to just sort of wet some areas because I don't want everything to be the same texture. I want some places to kind of blur a little bit. And so I'm just kind of indiscriminately wetting areas of the paper. And part of this, again, is just inviting in a little bit of chaos. I don't exactly know what's going to happen, but I know that when you mix water and paint, interesting things happen. And I'm going to invite in that uncertainty. This is not the type of watercolor where it's all planned out. And, I have those too. I have, commissions and things where it's more of a destination, where I'm trying to get to a specific outcome or a specific image. This is a journey painting. And so we're just going to start putting paint on this page and just seeing what happens. And I kind of feel like there's this above ground and below ground kind of line, that very first line that was made, kind of just feels like a little bit of a dividing form. And so I'm going to just lean into the idea that we've got kind of a above ground and a below ground. And in this first layer, I'm keeping it really light, at least trying to, because I know that with each additional layer, there's going to be more opportunities to darken and kind of call things out. Now, I've gone really into this warm spectrum. We've got this kind of yellowish that goes into this brown, and I always like to balance the warms and the cools. So I'm going to kind of bring some cool colors up from this corner and let them meet and mix and do what they do. And we'll see how that goes. Still wanting to keep it pretty light to begin with. So I'm going to get into this kind of purple and this sparkly blue that I'm really kind of in love with. I'm going to grab a second glass. I like to keep my warm colors and my cool colors with their own water. It's just something that I found useful, because if you mix complementary colors or warm and cool colors, you get grays, and you can intend that, but in this case I am trying to create something pretty vivid. I've really been digging the kind of brighter colors. So yeah, let's just kind of bring some of this blue and purple up and see what happens. It all just becomes this kind of dance of like, do a thing, see what happens, do something else, see what happens. And with this style of art, the reason why I love it is that there really aren't mistakes, there's just opportunities. And that is a really advantageous place for my brain. I think that when I get into stress, I can try to overplan or overthink, and it doesn't always make what I'm doing better. And so kind of having a style that I can go back to that allows for the chaos to be part of the image, that has been really useful. Definitely breaking that perfectionism that I was talking about. So we've got this kind of base layer. It's pretty patchy, but I think that's okay. I mean, one of the things I've also learned is that it's sort of like tending a fire. Like it's pretty tempting to keep poking and prodding a fire when it's burning, like a campfire. And a fire itself is this living, breathing creature, and when you poke it too much, you can actually end up putting it out. And so there's this sort of balance between over striving, over trying, and just letting it be. And I think in this case, you know, even though there's a million different ways that this could have gone, and probably some much better ones, I'm just going to say, you know what, this was the first layer. I'm not going to go in and try and overwork it. Like, I think eventually there's going to be a much brighter value or brighter color up here, and just kind of smooth this all out. But I'm just interested to kind of get in here and see what starts happening. And I think what I'm going to do is really focus on these like seed creatures, whatever these things are that are sort of developing. I'll zoom in a little bit. But, you know, I've got this big seed thing here, and then there are a couple others. There's this guy here, and there's one here. And I think I want to make them be central to this composition. And I think I might even just be crazy and go right to my boldest color right away, and then let it kind of permeate out. Yeah, we'll see how that goes. So I'm excited to try this. I haven't really tried this pigment yet. Again, these are handmade pigments, and our handmade watercolors, and man, look at what this, I don't know if you can see that on the camera, but the color that this is already turning. All right, so now here comes the bravery moment, because you know, I can sit here, I can plan this, I can worry about this, or I can just hit this and then just see what happens. And so boom, we're just gonna be big, we're gonna be bold. And where's my other one? Oh, here it is. Cool. So I'm gonna just let that really speak for itself, and then I'm gonna find other colors that kind of go with or complement it a little bit. I'm gonna start bringing those in kind of around. I'm gonna let them mix a little bit. I really love what happens when you get two patches of color and you just allow them to kind of sit next to each other and then have that moment where they run into each other, and there's just so many interesting little unplanned for I don't know, just the way it all mixes and goes together always surprises and delights me. So I'm going to let that red be really the boldest red, and I'm going to go in with this red, which I think is pretty cool, and just kind of highlight or accentuate some of these other areas that are maybe a bit secondary. And if it's not already obvious, I don't know what I'm doing, and that's kind of part of the fun, is not getting too hung up on what skills I'm missing, or you know, just the plan for the overall piece. If I get too stuck in worrying about that kind of stuff, it stops my brush from moving. And part of my approach here is to just always be moving. For the most part, there are moments where it is it's just a natural sort of a breath moment, just like stand back, look at it from 30,000 feet, make some new assessments. But I think in general, the idea is I have an intention, and that intention is to make a cool piece of art. And I'm just going to keep trusting my own flowing to look section by section, place by place, and just make some commitments. Just say, you know what? This feels like the right thing to do, and in the next moment, just do that again and again and again. And the cool thing about art, as in life, is that it's all layered. And the things I'm doing now, like, they might feel really important because it's the only paint on the page, but I know from experience that, you know, all of these little layers are going to be covered and covered again, and nothing is really sacred, nothing is really that important, because it's all a relationship. It's all in relation to other things that aren't even here yet. And so I can also just cultivate this trust with the future, that even though I don't know what the future is, what the future holds, what's coming, I can just exercise and practice this faith in myself and in others, that really what we're all doing is showing up and trying our best to find the things that we need, and that process happening over and over and over through myself and everyone else is the same force that has always driven life forward, whether that is towards things that I perceive as good or bad or wanted or unwanted. It, just like this painting, it all comes together in a way that is more artful than any single human artist could ever sit down, account for all the variables, plan for. And so it kind of becomes a collaboration with the self that I am, the self that I'm becoming, the people around me. And with each new layer like this, I'm kind of dipping into this next color that I haven't used yet, and it is really cool to see how this now blends with and changes what's already there. And I don't mind that I'm covering over some of these drawing lines, because at the end, and maybe even a couple times throughout kind of the middle stages of this, I will bounce back to the pigment, to the ink, and I'll start to call things out, or decide what gets buried, what gets to breathe a little bit more. So I said that I was fighting the urge to like fill every little section with paint and every little section with lines and every silence with words. I've been thinking about this a bit because, yes, I'm aware. I am posting my passion right smack dab in the middle of, I think, a lot of other people's passions, which I think for this channel specifically is this meditation on wealth and escaping the trap and let's just say crypto. And someone I just looked up and saw in the comment, it said, "This is bearish." And what an interesting way to go about one's life is to see things as either bearish or bullish. Like this is part of my understanding now that I've been around the block enough to just sort of observe, is that there's this feeling that it's like it's all gangbusters, it's all going great, or it's all garbage and worthless and not the moment. So we're gonna like hide in our caves when it's bearish. We're gonna come out and charge when it's bulls, instead of just, well, at least what I've found myself doing is like seeing it all as it relates together. One of my favorite things that I learned in crypto, one of my favorite little sayings, which is directly from Wyckoff, is that it's not a question of is it bullish or is it bearish? It's is it being marked up or is it being marked down? And that is a clue, is a key to the whole game that's being played behind the scenes, where from the outside it feels like, oh, we're in these two poles, and when it's bullish it means go, and when it's bearish it means, I don't know, cry and wait. And instead, just seeing it as a process, a time-tested process that has worked over and over and over and over and over again throughout the last, I don't even know how many 100 years of the stock market, and even probably before that with things like the tulip craze, and I think it was a Dutch phenomenon. But yeah, just these principles that people will pay a lot when the narrative is there to support their hopes and dreams and optimism, and then people will stay away from the stuff, fear it, discard it, discredit it, sell it, whatever, when the narrative flips. But the point is, it's a narrative. And I think, maybe I'm gonna like force this a little bit too much, but just keep tying it back into painting. Like, this is going to be a finished piece of art, and it's going to be sweet. And in the process of making it, there's lots of different phases that I'm gonna go through in making it. And there's gonna be places where I'm emphasizing lights, and there's times when I'm gonna be emphasizing darks. And to someone who just sees the end product, maybe a really simplistic statement could be made about how it was made. But in the process of making it, I am welcoming both poles. And I think what's funny is that right now, and one of the reasons why I'm really not like taking to heart a lot of the comments that are just sort of like, I don't know, really focused on the up or down movement of hopes and dreams, I don't know, is that it's really predictable with the cycle where those comments will come to. I think I said this in the last stream, but big operators make the most money when dumb money is super confident and super vocal and so sure. Like that's the whole game. And so I guess, yeah. Ryan's painting. Is this bearish? No, this is just what he do. So I'm realizing that I'm really in the warm spectrum here. And I want this to kind of cool off a little bit. And I want to find a nice way to transition between the two. So I think what I'm going to do is I'm going to lean into this red a little bit, kind of intentionally bold here, and I'm going to let that start flirting with the purple, because purple and red are really close together on the color wheel. They kind of bridge that transition. And so if I'm trying to get into the purples, I'm going to go through the red to get to purple. And then once I'm in purple, I can really cool things off. I can get into some blues. This paint is like really saturated. It's really pretty cool. This is that set that I made in a workshop. It's all ground powders from the earth and different sources. Ooh, wow. Yeah, we're getting really, really blue over here. I haven't really leaned into green at all. I don't know if I will. Let's just keep playing around, see what happens. I think I might come back to some of the pigments that I used for the underpainting here. This is another moment where it is part of the fun and part of the challenge to just let the paint be what fills these spaces. Previously they were just negative space, and now that negative space is kind of becoming the canvas for a lot of interesting things to happen. I really feel like I want to just sort of bring this cool area into balance with what was happening over here. I'm resisting the urge to maybe overdo it, overpaint it. And I said I hadn't done any green, but we're going to start seeing some things that look like green as we bring the cool colors and the warm colors together. It's also interesting that this might be a little too artsy esoteric, but it's just interesting that what I really strive for a lot of the time are these like really confident looking marks, and letting the paint be paint, so that what ends up on the page is not so much my intention, but just my kind of working with the paint. And I find that things get muddy, like as an analogy and in reality, things get muddy when I overthink, or when I try too hard to control. And I kind of see that happen a little bit down in here. I mean, everything is salvageable. Everything is a learning moment. This area here in particular, it got a little murky, and part of that is because my my wrestling with what was happening overshadowed my willingness to just let things be for a little bit longer. Let's see. This is pretty interesting. So I really saw this as sort of these leaves growing. I'm kind of trapping myself a little bit in this kind of sienna type hue, and I'm thinking, what can I bring that's not going to add too much color overcomplication, I guess. I don't want to go into a green. I don't want to have like all primary colors. So I think what I'm going to do is I'm going to lean into yellow a little bit. And my goal was also to have this section be a little bit brighter. So I think now what I'm going to do is I'm going to start to let this sienna type color play with something a little bit more intentionally yellow. And so we can kind of bring it. Wow, I think I picked up just a little bit of green from the palette, but it's actually kind of interesting. Zoom in a little bit. Cool, so Shankar M, I just want to let you know that you have inspired me in many ways. I have learned some great lessons from you and your experience in crypto. If you ever find yourself in Toronto, let me know. That sounds great. It's been a little while since I've been through Toronto, but it is a place I've been a handful of times. I do love Canada. That's where my dad is kind of from. He's from a lot of different places, but he lived in Canada a lot as a kid. And so when I was a kid, I just thought Canada was way cooler than the United States because it was someplace far away that liked hockey. And that is still super important to me. Okay, we're getting pretty wild here with just the the flowing between all the colors. I mean, this is again like part of the fun of this is every painting is a new little expression and lesson, and there's things that I will love about each one, and there's things that I will, let's just say, learn from. And with this one, this intention to have both warm and cool colors and kind of have this feel a little bit more like underground. Yeah, I'm I'm just seeing what happened, and I'm seeing kind of where my darkest darks are and how I'm eventually going to be balancing those out. And I think it's going to be a much I'm going to just say like more saturated painting than maybe I expected. And I think even in this area where it is just so like out of the tube purple or out of the trough, you know, my goal was to kind of play with both sides of this color wheel and just see how it all balanced. It'll be interesting when I get to the next layers here, like how to clean it up or how to just accentuate the things that I'm actually wanting to accentuate. I think one of the ways to do that is to just continue to sort of move this energy, this big plant thing, which really is kind of my primary visual focus, is to just continue to let it be what is kind of radiating out. And I think that might just sort of tie all these different sections together. It's also been a while since I've just painted right out of a travel set of paints. My favorite way to paint with watercolor is I have these big palettes. Some of them are actually frames off of past paintings that like the frame broke, and so I just took the glass. I can also do this. I can also just mix on the palette, but yeah, so I really enjoy when I have a lot more space to mix my colors before they make it to the page. But I think even with this kind of decision to sort of tie these pieces together, it will have the effect that I'm looking for. Now I'm actually kind of liking how this is like a stark contrast between the warmer feel and then this area, which got really kind of blue and purple. And this might be an interesting thing to talk about. So I've used the term welcoming quite a bit in these streams because it's become central to my practice of both living and art making, creating. And what's interesting to me is that when I am just tuned in to what I'm doing and how I'm feeling about it, it's really interesting to see how much those energies change. And in one moment, I can be just riding high and feeling so good about myself and my art and my choices. And in the next moment, I can find like, oh, I'm a little out of balance. Oh, this isn't going exactly how I wanted. Oh, like there's that. For me, it's almost like a frantic resistance, and it leads to feelings that are sort of like maybe depression a little bit, or just like not wanting to continue, or just questioning everything. And I find this a lot in like a day-to-day just experience of my life, where I can have days where just it feels like everything clicks, and I'm so stoked on what I'm doing and how I'm doing it. And then the sun goes down and it's the evening time, and it's like the other side of the brain gets to come up and be like, whoa, like it's not working. What you're doing is a little out of control. It's a little unwanted. It's, you know, you're not really an artist. You're not really worthwhile. And even like in this moment, I find myself kind of flirting between the two. Like earlier, I was really stoked on this, and now as I've just kind of gotten into all these layers, this is what I call the ugly phase of a painting. And it happens. It happens with pretty much every painting that I've ever done, is that there comes this moment where it looked better before. And you know, part of my younger artist self would be really listening to that voice and really getting hung up on that perfectionism or that desire to just look smart all the time or to look worthy and competent all the time. And I still feel that way. Like, in the beginning of this live stream, I was feeling really resolute, really, just settled and in it and calm. And then as it goes on, it's just like, wow, we're still here. We're still doing it. We're still making our art. And, it's not always the art that I planned on or thought about or wanted to make, but it is something. And the exercise that I've been in a lot is being okay knowing that there's the up and the down in the cycle, and that my interest is in making art, and so that requires the learning to navigate the up and the down, the feeling of being really smart and of being really dumb. And yeah, I think it's that play between the two that make the difference between whether it gets finished, whether it gets shown, whether it gets whether I have the courage to just keep going. I just had this moment where I'm like really present with what's happening, and sometimes it feels really strange. Like, find my hand just moving across the page, making these little marks, and I hear myself talking, and I know that some people will listen and some people will react and some people will respond. That's kind of what I'm talking about. It's this like second voice gets to speak up. There's like the flowing inner knowing that is almost childlike and just wanting to do and make and connect. And then there's the critic or the voice that starts analyzing and being like, yeah, you should have done better. You should have practiced. You should have maybe done nothing at all. And that voice can go straight to hell. Well, no, it's there too. I think it also deserves space. Some aspect of it was there to maybe protect and insulate the sensitive little soul that I was in different situations and contexts, and to just keep me from feeling the feelings that I didn't want to feel. Feelings of unworthiness or unacceptability. And so I think it's a natural response to those feelings to just turn it off, turn it down, diminish ourselves. And that's been part of this whole practice too, is to say, I hear you, inner critic. I know as well as you do when things are really working and when they're not. But I'm just going to keep going, and I'm going to keep showing up, and I'm going to keep doing it, because it's that cumulative practice that leads to the most interesting things. Overcoming that fear of really being exposed in shortcomings and limitations. And this painting, there's so much going on with it. There's, like I talked about a second ago, like this ugly phase of a painting. I'm still kind of in it. I'm still sort of in this moment of like really not not being stoked on all of it, but having been around the block enough times now in the business of art making, I know that if I can just hang on, even when my words get a little muddled, even when like the reasons why I'm doing this get a little confused, just stick with it. And maybe not every part of the painting is fun to look at, and that's fine. Like every stage of making it, and live streaming and just, you know, talking to the ether, there's moments here where I'm just like, man, shut up. Like, who cares? Like, what is the point? But if I turn it all off, then the flow stops, and then it really limits where this all can go. And as I sit here with this, as I just continue to, you know, make the next mark, which is all I'm really doing. Like since the beginning, there's me with a paintbrush, and there's this thing in front of me, and I just show up and I hit it with what I think it needs in any given moment, and then I let go and move on. And I have found that just doing that and sticking with it, it eventually gets to really interesting places. Like this piece, which I really like, you know, this was in the same state once, and it took all those little layers to complete it, make it something. And so with this, I'm just gonna keep true to my intent. It's also interesting to switch brushes and kind of go down to the smaller brush now, because what I've been doing so far is really laying in these big areas, and now I'm able to go in and in those areas that before seemed maybe without a plan or without clarity. Now that I'm kind of coming back in and I've got these darker values that I can add, it lets each little area have a new story told about it. And I think that is pretty cool, because with my life, there's been lots of areas of the ugly painting, and it's not until years later that I get to say, oh, that's what that moment was for. It was to bring this to me, which I didn't want, but now I see just how important that was, just how much that balances out what was happening. And I think that's true of myself as an individual and ourselves, I guess. I think it's also true of the collective human happening, that there's a lot of moments and places in history and time that just feel really uncomfortable and out of balance and painful, and people die. People literally die. And later on, sometimes generations later, someone is sitting in the sun with their family, or in just this beautiful moment of human expression and fulfillment. And that moment rests on all of the horrors and the pains and the sacrifice and everything that came before. So that if there is a single moment of your life that you love, it rests on that full stack of all of the injustices and pain and suffering and sorrow. It's like the pile of leaves in fall. All those leaves that were previously growing and beautifully swaying in the sunlight are now just compost, but that compost is what the next season's growth comes out of. And so, yeah, letting this painting just go through its own seasons, and letting things that might be ugly or at first undesired, letting them be long enough to get wrapped into the whole happening. I think with this guy, I like this really bold red. This is this like insect shell paint pigment. And I think by continuing that really bold red down in here, it's gonna just like bring this whole root creature into kind of a stark expression. And really just link this whole area together. It can be hard when the values are misaligned, when we've got really light values next to really dark values. And that's just another opportunity to have another go at it. Keep bringing those into balance. I love how each stroke overlaps with things that happened previously. And so things that I didn't like a second ago become the shining little variations and differences under the surface that make the finished piece look so cool. I'm really starting to like this big red guy. And maybe that was it. Maybe there was just like this moment in the painting where the focal point got lost. It's like the intention drops, or there's a distraction, or maybe even like I started saying yes in areas that were calling to me, and so I had to have this little moment of like, wait, what am I doing? What is this painting? And then once it comes back around, it all starts to click. I'm just so in love with this red paint. Like, it's beautiful, and the fact that it was handmade makes it all the more interesting. So I'm really gonna kind of punch up these little seeds. I'm feeling like there's enough of these little seeds that I kind of want to add another color that goes with them to even further call them out. This guy kind of got some yellow, but I feel like there might even be something more orange, or yeah, just something that kind of gives them like a visual, here I am. All right, let's see what we're gonna do here. I want to keep this moving, but I also want to start getting into this section. Just see what happens when we kind of get back in here. This feels kind of like a bold move. Let's just see what happens. I'll put it in frame here, because I am now mixing this darkest red back into these areas that were previously very dark, but in the cool color palette. I think what I want to do is just sort of tie this all together. And I don't know how it will go, but I know that I'm excited to try and find out. Yeah, that's interesting. This almost has this like stained glass look. Yeah, I don't know if this is the right move or not, but I'm feeling like I want to let that this cool section, be its own unique self, but I really just have this urge to tie it into the colors that are everywhere else. It feels like it kind of stands apart a little bit. And I don't know what's going to happen here when I add this yellow. I know it's going to kind of turn into something a little bit more muted and muddy, but I think just warming it up a little bit, like there'll still be some cool undertones, but I feel like that's the part that I'm just wanting to bring into balance. Yeah, it's got this weird, almost like aquatic feel now. It feels like these layers of stained glass. And I think what is going to happen is as I get in with the next layers of darker pigment, there's going to be a kind of a building up of the value in this area so that it does start to look a little bit more three-dimensional. But we shall see. I think about Dory on Finding Nemo, and the just keep swimming, just keep swimming. Because a lot of the time it can feel foolish, or it can feel out of control, or yeah, that's kind of my meditation in this one. It's this balance between the desire to be perfect, and not even like technically perfect, but just like some self-known level of quality that's really satisfying to be, and then having to continually welcome the reality of just being and making and doing exactly what actually happens, so that like all of my dreams for my art, and even for this YouTube channel, when I started these live streams, it's like, okay, here's the deal. I know that a lot of people aren't gonna like it, but I like it, so I'm just gonna keep making it, and the homies that dig it are gonna stick around, and those would be the homies that I could never have reached otherwise. And we're gonna totally like vibe and get along and talk cool philosophy. And then all the people that think I'm an idiot, think I'm crazy, have hurtful things to say, whatever, they're gonna say their bit, they're gonna leave, and I'll just be able to be this shining example of someone who is just anti-bullshit. At my wife's school, they have this concept of a noble goal. And so I've been asked, what's your noble goal? And it's really hard for me to set goals a lot of the time. Like I really have a resistance to being measured against something. But as I thought about it, I decided in kind of a cheeky way that my no bull goal is no bull. Like I notice how I get fired up around and about bullshit. And that's probably like where a lot of the initial coming to this YouTube channel was for people. It was like, yo, there is bullshit here, and let's fucking show it, let's talk about it, let's really understand it, because being taken advantage of, or just saying okay to corruption and manipulation and all of these things that pull us off of our human center, like those are the things that just magnetize me and make me really fired up in creative ways too, not just anger. And so I think when I came to this idea of, hey, I'm just going to make my art and talk, and people can sort of get with it or not. That intention is really clear. And what I'm talking about, and I know I'm rambling, but the whole thing here, the analogy is that I'll speak for myself, my hopes and dreams rarely, if ever, go the way that I expect. It is rarely the painting that I know I'm capable of making that ends up on the page. And more often than not, it's this just bizarre expression of my own, I don't know. Some of it is really easy for me to welcome, like, oh wow, I did that. I'm really brilliant. I'm really special. I'm really whatever. And other parts of it are, like the commenters pointing it out, like the shortcomings, or even in this painting, like all the things that I knew it could be and wanted it to be, like it just is what it is. And all the amazing, brilliant things that I want to come on here and say, all I can really do is have that clear intention. My intention is to make art and to share, and then just like trusting that even though I can have these moments of panic of like, oh my gosh, this is horrible, this is ugly, this is wrong, why am I doing this? There was nothing that made me hit the record button or hit that stream button earlier. And this was a totally self-inflicted choice that I now just have to deal with, live with. But that is the intention. That is the practice. That's the experiment. That's the exercise. Is what happens when I don't get afraid of what people are going to think or say, or what I think they're going to think or say. And what happens when I, yes, read the comments of the people saying like just a lot of kind of negative, hurtful things, but I progressively tune those out, and I progressively move towards the encouragement and the resonance, the people that say things like, I really connected with you, and I really learned something, and it meant something. Like that's the artistic expression that is most exciting and satisfying, and the only way to get to it is to be brave enough to let go of what other people want, what other people think, what I think other people need, what I think my purpose is, and to just say internally, like, this is what excites me. Even when it's going wrong, even when it's like the wrong painting or the wrong words or the wrong day, I don't know, is to just be really resolute in knowing internally that this is what I'm about, what drives me. And it's this funny thing, like I'm sitting in here in my studio. I think Joey might be here, but I'm just talking to myself, essentially. I'm giving myself a pep talk. It's this like inner flow of consciousness. And the theory is that might be interesting to some people. To say, like, here's a dude who is like really going for it. And I am really going for it. I went in just a couple years from just having a lot of anger and having a lot of questions, and then getting really clear with myself about what it is that I want, and then it's just been manifesting. It's just been happening. And I've got this art studio. I'm in gallery shows. I found the people in the community that is helping me level up. And I've painted on huge commercial projects, and I've painted my own style, weird, late at night in ridiculous clothes, just flowing to the music that I like the most. And this like inner dialogue is what is coming out on this stream, and it's the pep talk. It's the keep going. It's worth it. What you desire out of this life is worth it, and it's worth bumping into the haters. It's worth rejection. It's worth living through these moments where it looks like everything is going wrong. It's worth disappointing people. The people that I'm most interested in having around me are the people that aren't even really concerned with what I'm doing necessarily, because they are radically living and being themselves. And then we get to hang out and be like, whoa, you are amazing. You inspire me. You are doing such cool things. And vice versa. And so it becomes not a weird dance of like pleasing. It becomes just an excited collaboration towards what, if anything, we want to do or make together. And I think that those types of relationships are only really possible when the attention is not on who are you, what do you need from me, what do you want from me, how can I deliver, how can I be what you want, how can I make you feel comfortable, how can I show up in ways that set you at ease. And instead, just keep doing my particular dance and trusting that the connections and the relationships and the opportunities, if they're flowing out of that space of intention, will naturally be the most interesting, fruitful, fulfilling relationships, opportunities, collaborations that I could ever want. It's like kind of like the law of attraction, I guess, that we draw to ourselves what we're putting out. And I think in the times when I've been putting out the frequency of neediness or seeking approval from outside sources, I attract to people that want the same, that are also seeking approval and also anxious or insecure. And so it all just becomes this party of insecurity, as opposed to the people that I'm around now are these really self-moving, dynamic creators getting to collaborate or do things with them is like a meeting of peers. And that's exciting. Okay, we're just gonna keep going on this thing, and man, I'm liking it. I had the moment earlier where I was like, oh man, what am I doing? And there's still areas where I feel they need a little bit more attention, and we'll get there. But it all comes down to just the willingness to stick with it. The willingness to say, this might not be exactly right yet, but it's a process. And the process that I'm doing right now is the same process that I do in my life. And it is showing up. It is being grateful for what is there. That's the gift. That's the gift of the entire human happening that creates the opportunity for me to live and be and make something new. And so I accept that gift, and then I make my mark, and then I let it be, and I let it go, and I move on, and that's it. That's the process, over and over and over. And so with each stroke, I am grateful to the artist that I was, and I'm excited to be the artist that I am now, and every brushstroke is an opportunity to demonstrate everything that I've learned. And so rarely will I make a painting that is all the same thing. It's almost like snapshots in time of an artist learning something. And so in one painting there could be 10 different artists, and they were all me. I had this really interesting experience in California with Taylor, who has been an amazing mentor for me. He's a very, very talented artist, muralist, just good human. And I had this really interesting opportunity to go out and paint my very first murals with him. And the first thing that I did on this big mural project was paint fish. And I had never painted in this style before. I had never painted with these tools before. I had never painted publicly like that before, with people like walking around, walking down the halls, like watching us paint. And it was terrifying. It was terrifying to make those first marks when I was so insecure and I didn't want to ruin the amazing work that he already did. And it was overcoming such fear to just make those strokes and to try. And the reason I bring the story up is because in this same vein of, at the end of this painting, it will not just be me who painted it, it'll be all the different me's that existed throughout the making of this painting, learning and changing and adapting. These fish that I painted, the first couple that I did, it looked like a kindergartner did it. And I'm not kidding. Like, they were so basic and just bad. Some of them were just bad, like not even fish shaped. But because it was an aquarium and there were so many different fish, I think I painted like 60 or 70 fish when it was all said and done. And by the end, I was able to render these beautiful, colorful, tropical fish in 3 dimensions that were from reference photos. And if you walk down that hallway, anyone who does, I bet they think that there was an entire team of people of all different skills that painted these fish. You would never guess that it was the same artist that painted fish A and fish B. And I got to witness my own artistic growth in real time in this hallway of fish, just painting fish after fish after fish, learning each time and letting go and trying again. And yeah, talking about being grateful, like so grateful to have that opportunity, like to be given an aquarium's worth of experience over a weekend. I think we painted for like 4 or 5 days, sometimes into the very, very early mornings or early hours of the morning. And pretty much every fish that I painted was the same cycle of like optimism and then trying and then feeling of failure and then feeling of trying to recover and then finishing and evaluating and then trying again. And over and over and over and over and over. And that is a cool experience. It is, you don't have to paint in a hallway of fish to have that same intention of just like, this is what I want. This is what I want to do. This is who I want to be. And I'm going to try today. And it's going to be this cycle of, you know, big ideas, big dreams, big hopes, do something, evaluate, maybe feel really crappy about it because it didn't go didn't go how it was expected or planned or desired, but being able to get up and do it again and do it again and do it again and do it again. And every time I paint a stroke here, I'm learning a little bit, I'm growing a little bit, I'm moving a little bit closer towards the artist that I am becoming. And that's what we're talking about. That's the good stuff. That's where the magic happens. And then it's cool because each one of these paintings sort of becomes a little story. Like internally, I'm having this whole story as I'm making it, and I think it shows up in the final. I don't know if it does. I think we tend to project onto other people, other artists, other humans, like the things that we really want them to be because it's what we really want to be. And I really want to believe that out there are just incredible artists who wield all the faculties of creativity and can just render anything at any moment. And I want to believe that because it's what I want to be. And so then I start projecting that onto different people and heroizing and starting to create artificial barriers in my own thinking of like, well, they can do that because they went to art school in Italy and they, you know, have had all these opportunities that I haven't had. But in my experience, and especially, you know, knowing as many artists as I do, every artist has some level of the same internal dialogue, and we see their work and are just amazed at the beauty and the poise and the skill, and they can just see like everything they didn't create, everything that they wanted it to be but it wasn't. And that's why some of the best artists are also their own harshest critics, and it's almost unfathomable. Not to pick on anybody, but my sweet mate, who was here in the studio with me for the last year before he moved out, yeah, it was just really interesting. He has got so much skill and can create such beautiful, beautiful art. And because of that, he also knows what's possible for him. And it was really interesting to see him do things that I've never seen anyone else do, but then to have like a really critical evaluation of it because there was some standard that wasn't met, that could have been met. And that's, I mean, on some level, having those goals and having like a sense of quality is what drives certain people to be better and better. And so over time, that kind of fool's errand can produce really amazing results. And it's just interesting to witness and to experience. I mean, I feel that more often than not, that the art I'm making is such a small cry towards the art that I know I'm capable of making. And just having to be okay with that, having to just say, like, yep, this is the artist that I am today. This is what I'm capable of today. And by doing this piece, or showing up and making this thing, whatever it is, this is putting me on that road to the next thing and the next thing and the next thing. But not getting discouraged if it's below expectation. Whose expectation? I'm always surprised, I guess, and also delighted in a way, because it's like, phew. But a lot of times the pieces of art that I personally like least of mine just end up being really well received. And I have this happen a lot at like art market type things, art walks, where like there'll be, the one piece that I didn't even want to put out because I'm embarrassed of it, and that will be the one that sells. It just speaks to someone and they love it. And so that kind of shows me that there's a value in having standards for ourselves if it drives us to learn. And also, it's not worth getting hung up on, because the judge of the work is a different person for everyone who sees it. And there's no control of that. There's no, why worry? I can't control how this is received from every person who sees it. And that's a great analogy for this YouTube channel too. Like, what stress, what unneeded noise to be worried about pleasing everyone. There's no end to pleasing everyone. It is a perfectly impossible task. And so if I'm pleased, then that's all that's really needed, because that's what keeps me coming back. It's like, it's kind of like golf. Like how I'll go golfing and a lot of shots will go poorly, and then that one shot that goes great makes the whole round, keeps you coming back. And so this is kind of the same thing, like so many different responses, so many different imagined audience members, and all it takes is that one that's exciting to make it all turn around. And so why even put why even put that in an external source? Why not just be the source and say, this is awesome. This is so much fun. This is my favorite thing to do. And that will keep me coming back. And in the end, I'm completely okay knowing that nobody will ever hear me say this sentence. That I could have lost everyone way, way long ago, because it takes a long time to paint. So to sit here for, an hour plus and yammer, like this might just be time with myself. And that is the end goal for me. It's not really about making a product that other people want. It's about wanting to make a product. And if that's there, then something's there. And this bizarre, weird little painting here that has gone through so many phases and iterations and is still like just this strange, ugly duckling. It is what it is, and it will be something to someone. everyone who sees it, some people might see it and love it and want it. Some people might see it and be like, looks like a middle schooler made it. That's my inner dialogue. That's like the quintessential what I say to myself when I'm really being discouraging to myself is, oh, it looks like a middle schooler made it. Which is kind of derogatory because I teach middle schoolers and a lot of them are even more talented than I will ever be. And so maybe it's not such a bad thing if a middle schooler made it. Maybe that's something to aspire to. But that's always been my kind of inner self-talk of, yeah, just disrespecting my own art. Oh, thank you. I cussed 007. This whole time I'm here just like meditating into speaking into the void, and then these little signs and signals that there are other humans sharing the same time and space and experience. And that in and of itself is a gift. That we might think we're alone and then discover that what we're really having is a human experience, and that everyone is having some reflection of that human experience, whether they are rich or poor or beautiful or ugly or I don't know. I guess I said that because it's like it's easy to think that other people have it figured out. I've met a couple people lately that just have like a lot of money, or they've got like really cool businesses, or they just seem to have it all figured out. And the 4 in me, the Enneagram 4, that can be envious and just be like, well, of course it all worked out for them. When's my ship coming in? But the more conversations I have, the more people I meet, the more it feels like it's all just a game of magnitude. That everybody has, for example, money. Like everyone has some amount of money that they feel really uncomfortable about. And it's just an order of magnitude. For some people, that might be $10. For some people, it might be $100. For some people, it might be $1,000 or $100,000 or $1 million. And it's hard to fathom that for some people, spending $1 million could feel to others like spending 1,000. But there's some similar constraints, or there's the same kind of restriction around values when they get higher. I worked with a bunch of rich people at one point in my career as a designer when I was working for this jet company that was a startup out of Denver, and I don't know, a lot of cool people, but not always the happiest people. And you can start to see really fast that money doesn't necessarily solve any problems. It just changes the order of magnitude. And I think that's also kind of interesting and funny in crypto, is the sense that like to get lucky on a meme coin, or like all of a sudden have wealth, as if that would actually solve some of the underlying feelings. And that more often than not, what happens is it just magnifies everything. It just magnifies and kind of takes to the next order of magnitude those same insecurities, those same feelings of loneliness, except now it's compounded. And I don't wish wealth on anybody lately. Not if it's just like a state change from like one state to the other, and just like, oh, that's gonna solve it. Now my marriage will be fixed. Now my self-talk will be different. Because whatever we do with money now is what we will do with money when we have more of it. Only the stakes are higher. So I'm looking at the time here, 2:40. Wow, I've just been going on and on. And this is starting to sort of come to a place where I can say that I'm done for the moment. It's definitely going to get a lot more work and love in some of these areas. I'm still going to be sort of balancing out the color temperature. I think that was maybe my one thing that when I look at this, I'm like, okay, that's what I would do a little bit different, is really start with the warms, get everything backed by the same warm temperature, and then if I want to go a little bit cooler, to just make those gradual changes. Color is interesting because color is relative, so the way things show up as either warm or cool have a lot more to do with what they're next to than what is right out of the pigment, or what right out of the pan or the tube. And so what I'm kind of taking away from this particular art experiment is that in some of these areas where we've got a lot more kind of color harmony, I think it allows it to be a little bit more cohesive. And then because these areas are out of color harmony a little bit, it gets a little muddied. Wish there's a better way that I can kind of show the sections I'm talking about. Yeah, but you know what? It just is what it is. And the fun part about this is knowing that these are all just layers, and that there's a lot more time that I get to spend with this, and that some of these areas that right now are really rough, they will eventually get an opportunity to just be brought into balance. So here's one that I actually would say is finished. It's a little bit different. I mean, there's definite like visual similarities. Just the size of the lines and the size of the painting itself it's a smaller painting, and the lines are actually thicker. So there's a lot more intricacies, and it'll take a little bit of time to balance it all out. But like I'm trying to say, the cool thing is that nothing is really done when it's a process until the process takes it to the point where it's like, okay, that's done. And it's the willingness to just keep playing with it that gets it there. Cool. So, oh, thanks. iCust007. Bravo for the courage of pricing high your work. Yeah. So that painting that I hung for $20,000. Man, that made me feel some feelings. But it's all this exercise of saying, you know what, this art means a lot to me, and I'm looking for those that resonate with it. And rather than going to the lowest bidder and trying to please everyone and trying to make everyone feel comfortable, I feel that my art gets progressively more interesting. It gets better. It gets bigger and bolder and braver when part of that process is also being in that discomfort of saying, you know what, this is actually worth a lot more now, because it's unique. It is its own statement And it is more than just the art itself. It's the connection to this story, to my story of an artist that is really, really resolved to show up in the world and have the impact, to have the connections and the resonance, and to move towards a future where art is central to myself, to my community, to the world. There's so much that we need, or that I need. There's so much that I need right now that only art can give me as an expression. And maybe I'll kind of wrap up here with showing this piece, because it is sort of like, this is the direction that I'm really excited in where I'm going, and going bigger and bigger, and just the amount of faith that it took to make this piece. Not faith in any particular idea, but just faith in life, faith in showing up, being in my body, being in my energy, and the types of just beautiful, accidental happenings that come from that kind of trust and engagement are the very essence of art to me. And so, yeah, I'll kind of leave it there. Yeah. Thank you for those of you who are along for this journey. And if you made it this far, holy shit, you're my people. I love you. Come over for dinner. Let's hang out. Let's grab coffee. Let's talk life. Is he kidding? Not really kidding. If you're in Fort Collins, look me up. Follow me on Instagram. That's a great place to get in touch if you want to send a message. I love pen pals and conversations. And if you haven't already, check out that art survey. You can let me know what style of art that I'm doing that you like the most. It's helping me prepare for this collection that I'm going to release. And I am going to do one more drawing for the winner of a framed and signed print of the art that you choose. So, yeah, that's it for today's live stream. I'm going to hit the button, and until next time, cheers.